everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 165. Right there in my notes it says stumble on the number and then say 165. 165, recorded live Monday, August 5th, 2013. I'm, of course, your host and the brand new owner of the Washington Post, Todd Klindt. Tonight's netcast is brought to you by the fine folks at Rackspace. They gave me that PowerPoint template there that you can't see that I'm pointing at terribly. They gave me this flag. They gave me the shirt, but I'll cover that later. I know that the anticipation is killing you. So if you've got any hosting needs, Exchange, Linux, WordPress, go to Rackspace.com. If you've got cloud servers with us, we got this new thing that's going to be coming out. I can't tell you about it yet. I don't know that it's public, but it's going to be cool if you're doing big implements of things like WordPress and all that, so stay tuned for that if you got cloud servers. But Rackspace.com is where all the cool kids are going these days for all their hosting needs. And if you have specific SharePoint hosting needs, you can go to sharepoint.rackspace.com, find out about all the great things that we do in the SharePoint space. And the more that you do that, the more they keep buying me cool things like flags, and the more I keep being able to do this netcast. Everybody wins, except for the people using Huddle, but they're used to being losers anyway, so it's all good. Rackspace.com. Okay, now let's move on to the production notes. The last one wasn't last week, but 2 weeks ago, number 164 went off flawlessly. No audio problems, no video problems. The content was good. The chat room was on fire. Everything was perfect. So I think I'm just going to have to retire. I'm going to go out on top. I'm going to be smart where Michael Jordan was not, and I'm going to go out at the top of my game. So I think I should just retire. Nah, there's no way that'll work. I got too much to say. But it looks like a bunch of the problems that I've had before have gotten sorted out. I've improved a bunch of the editing stuff, so we've got lower thirds now. You'll notice that the camera is up a little higher so that there's actually room for the lower thirds down here. Got a new introduction. Everything's been going pretty well. I think the last, since January when I went to the New Media Expo, I got a bunch of good ideas, got reinvigorated about this whole netcasting thing, and those changes are starting to come to fruition now. So everything went great. If you've got any suggestions, or if you think my jubilation is unfounded and there were problems, shoot me an email, todd.klint@rackspace.com, or hit me up on Twitter @ToddKlint, and let me know what you think. Don't forget, one of the new venues that you can use to consume the netcast is through YouTube. I've got my own YouTube channel now. You can go to youtube.com/ToddKlintNetcast, because Google are a bunch of meanies and won't let me have /ToddKlint. So /ToddKlintNetcast. About the last 20 or so netcasts have been there. It is likely where this netcast will show up first. So if you want to be on the cutting edge and get this before all of your friends and soak all the knowledge up and be able to look really smart in front of your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Close to 200 subscribers now, which is pretty cool. And what that gave me was YouTube had a threshold for the number of subscribers that you needed to do live events, and they've dropped that. So instead of me rising up to meet their threshold, they've been kind enough to lower the threshold for me, but now you only need 100 subscribers to do live events on YouTube, and I've got close to 200 of you fine folks subscribing on YouTube. So I've submitted an application to try to be able to do live stuff on YouTube. Not sure how long that'll take to get back from. I just did that today. But if that gets approved, then I might be able to do this live on YouTube as well as Ustream. So I'm just kind of feel those out. Something makes me think YouTube's going to be a little better experience. I know from their video publishing things, it's really great tools. I resisted YouTube for a long time because I wanted to keep them all on my website to keep control of them, but YouTube, they make a pretty compelling product. So depending on how this live event stuff goes off, I might switch to that. So if anybody out there has used the live event, let me know. Doug in the chat room wants to know if we're going to keep this regular IRC chat. I assume so. It's completely independent, so we could do it and YouTube. There's nothing special. Yeah, and a bunch of people in the chat room Tech Rev, Merrill, Joanne are all talking about the chat. The chat's really great. I'm really glad that I switched over to IRC. Mitch is saying, if I can't heckle and tell you you're an idiot, I'm out of here. Exactly. We don't want to lose that. And if you like the IRC chat, thank the guys at the Power Scripting Live podcast. When I was on their podcast last year, that's where I got the idea for this. They're using Freenode, but I use the Ars Technica IRC thing. But those guys are exactly what inspired this, so thank those guys. If you're doing the IRC chat and you're doing it live here, you can use the web page, and I've got the horizontal and the vertical. That kind of sound like the old Outer Limits here. We've got the horizontal, we've got the vertical. But also you can use any IRC client under the sun. I use one called Mirc, M-I-R-C, and you just want to go to irc.arstechnica.com. That's the server name, and then the channel name is just SharePoint, and you can jump in. I'm usually only here on Monday nights, so you got to catch it live. But this IRC chat, I agree with everybody in the chat room, is much better than anything I've used before. So hopefully within a few days I'll know about all that, and we'll be able to see if I want to go with the YouTube stuff live also. Okay, and if you do use Mirc, a couple people in the chat room are using it. I highly recommend you just buy it. It's like $30, well worth it. This guy, Khalid, whoever, has been putting out Mirc for like 10 years now. Done an awesome job. He deserves it. And once you buy it, it's good forever. I bought Mirc like 10 years ago, and I've never paid another penny for it. So he deserves every penny he can get. So another interesting thing, I don't have this in my notes, but upstairs on my TV, I have a Western Digital WD-TV Live Hub set-top box appliance where I used to watch all my kids' videos and all that kind of stuff. And they have an option now for RSS. So you can put an RSS feed in, and it'll show up on there. So I put my own RSS feed in, and it's kind of cool. It gives you all the different things. You can highlight one. It gives you the synopsis, and then you hit it, and it just goes full screen on your TV. So that was pretty cool. I don't know how many of you people have those kind of devices, but that's a pretty fun way to consume all this. Okay, so let's move on to the topics. I don't know if you guys have heard or not, but a little piece of software dropped a little over a week ago, a little thing called Service Pack 2. This made me think of The Jerk, the movie The Jerk. The new service packs are here. The new service packs are here. They came out a couple weeks ago. This is for SharePoint 2010 Service Pack 2. This puts you at build 14.0.7015.1000. People have been asking me for like 6 months when Service Pack 2 is going to come out. The answer is 2 weeks ago. That's when it's going to come out. Now, I think Microsoft did a terrible job of putting that out right before I went on vacation, so I couldn't talk about it last week. Didn't like that much, but we're getting file not found on my link. I must not have set the short URL up. Doug just saying, skip it. Go to SharePoint 2013. So when that comes out, I'll get a real link here in a second. So that came out a couple weeks ago. As always, you should be careful with this, but it's a service pack, so we're going to want to put it on fairly quickly, as quick as is responsible. People in the chat room are less than excited about the 404s. I kind of built up that whole service pack and then sent them to a bad link. By the time this thing gets published and I get the show notes, the link I put will be good, I promise. So speaking of good, let's talk about the good in Service Pack 2. The good is it adds a bunch of current support for things. For instance, it gives native support for IE10 in SharePoint 2010. We used to have some weird issues with IE10 pages not rendering correctly. And all that's fixed now. Doug in the chat room says he thinks the title for tonight's Netcast should be 404. I don't know, that's kind of short. We'll see. I'm sure I'll say something else that's dumb before the night's over. So we got support for modern browsers now, IE10, that is added. Also, Service Pack 2 adds support for Windows Server 2012, but there's an asterisk on the edge. So what you cannot do as of today, August 5th, 2013, is you can't install SharePoint 2010 fresh on Windows Server 2012, because if you do a slipstream install, it still fails. because if you do a slipstream, if you remember, it does the installation, then it goes to that updates folder and then installs the updates. Well, it's actually the installer that doesn't like Windows Server 2012. So as of right now, you can't install a fresh farm on Windows 2012. What you probably could do, though I haven't tested it, is you probably could install your SharePoint 2010 farm on Windows 2008 R2, install Service Pack 2, and then upgrade that box to Windows Server 2012. I assume that would work. What is a better idea, though, is just wait a couple of weeks, and Microsoft will come out with a distribution for SharePoint 2010 that has Service Pack 2 built in. And so that's what I would do. Doug in the chat room is saying that he's been really impressed with Windows Server 2012. I have too. I think a lot of people had problems with the interface because it's got the Metro Windows 8 interface. And when Windows Server 2012 came out, I forced myself to use it. I forced myself to embrace it, to learn new things. And it was really rough figuring out where things were at and figuring out this dumb Metro interface. But honestly, after a couple of weeks, a month tops, I kind of got it all figured out. And I'm not very smart, and if I can figure it out in a month, certainly it's going to take you 3-4 days tops. So if you're just afraid of all that, go ahead. For SharePoint 2013, I put everything on Windows Server 2012, and I would SharePoint 2010 if I could, but I just can't. But if you want to put your SharePoint 2010 servers on Windows Server 2012, my guidance is to wait until that media comes out. So we've talked about the good, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there. There, of course, with any good, with any service pack, we're going to have some bad. So a few of the bad things. Number one, you'll notice if you look at the build numbers on my build sheet, Service Pack 2 is 7015, but the June 2013 CU is 7102. And I didn't do very good in math in school, but I do think that 7102 is greater than 7015, and so that means the June 2013 CU is technically after Service Pack 2 that came out in July. It's one of those I'm my own grandpa sort of things. It gets worse. The June 2013 CU came out before Service Pack 2, but it doesn't understand Service Pack 2, so what you can't do is install Service Pack 2, which is 7015, and then install the June 2013 CU, which is 7102, a later build, because it can't see Service Pack 2, and it thinks you don't have any service packs installed, and it refuses to install. So what you can do, I don't recommend this, but you can do it, and I have done it, is you can install the June 2013 CU, and then install Service Pack 2 over top of that, and everything seems to fall together right. But again, much like teaching a bear to dance or kissing your cousin, just because you can doesn't mean you should. The folks at Microsoft have said that the August 2013 CU for SharePoint 2010 will recognize Service Pack 2 and install over top on that. So that's kind of my guidance on how you should go about doing all that. Lord only knows what that's going to break. I mean, it's going to fix this one thing, but it's going to probably break 100 other things. But that's probably your best method right now. So if you're not at the June 2013 CU level, you should probably go to Service Pack 2. If you are at the June 2013 CU, you can install Service Pack 2 underneath it, and then August on top. It's all a big mess right now. But just know that if you want June, you have to install it first before Service Pack 2, or else it won't work. And as we start to unravel that, the story just gets better and better. You can't install the June 2013 CU on RTM, so you'll have to install Service Pack 1. And then there was some glitch in the install, so you have to install the June 2012 CU, then the June 2013 CU, and then Service Pack 2. I can't make this up. My writers aren't that good. So kind of, this is a good time for testing Service Pack 2 in your test environments, all that kind of stuff. So here's some other bad. If you have any custom list views with SharePoint 2010, or if you've got part of the Office 2010 client installed on your SharePoint server, you need to install quick, fast, and in a hurry KB2687520, and that will fix all those things. If not, if not, you're going to have some problems with your XSL templates and custom list views and all that kind of stuff. And that is listed. So all of these things that I've talked about are listed on the bugs, notes, and regressions page for SP2. That's the link that's dead in the chat room right now. But by the time you hear this in the recording, you'll be able to go to toddklindt.com/SP2010SP2, SharePoint 2010 SP2, and it'll have all of those, the link to that hotfix and all that other stuff. And as always, to keep up to date with all of the SharePoint 2010 patches, you can go to toddklindt.com/SP2010builds, or follow me on Twitter at SP2010patches. And every time I post something about this, I'll send out a tweet, and nothing else. No tweets about anything but SharePoint 2010 patches. Also last week, I think for the April 2013 CU, I added the link for the fast server patch. Nobody cares about that, but I did make that change. And as you're installing Service Pack 2 out in your own test environments and all that kind of stuff, if you see good things or see bad things, let me know. Send me a tweet, do whatever, and if I can verify it and all that kind of stuff, I'll add it to the wiki and share it with all of your SharePoint admin friends. That's what this whole community thing is about, synergy and other buzzwords. So if you've got those things, share them with me. So we have a couple of other topics to talk about. We talked about how the couple of netcasts ago, we talked about how the Patch Tuesday patch MS13-052 broke SharePoint 2010. It was a .NET thing that had some problems. There's now a knowledge base, or there's a KB article that fixes that. So there's a KB to fix the KB that broke. I don't know where they come up with this stuff. But if you had that problem and you want to get that .NET security fix on, you can install KB2872441, and that will fix all that up. So that's a good thing. Oh, so here's another one, and I wasn't originally going to talk about this tonight. I thought I already had. Going senile, getting older, and I thought I'd already talked about this, but we were pre-gaming in the chat room before we go live. That'll happen. Doug Heminger and Lori Gowan and I were chatting, and we were talking about how long these patches take to install. And I think Doug said he was testing the March cumulative update for SharePoint 2013 in his test environment, and good on him for testing instead of just throwing that thing live in production. But he was saying that it took like 2 hours to install, and so I asked him if he had done the tricks to make the service pack or the cumulative update install quicker. He's like, tricks? What tricks? In his ears did that old perking up thing, like dogs do. And so I sent him to a blog post by Russ Max. He's a Microsoft PFE, I think. But anyway, he posted a blog post in April on why that cumulative, or that public update, he calls it a cumulative update, but it's a public update, why it takes so long to install. And then he talks about some ways that you can take that down from a couple hours to a few minutes. And he's doing things like he's shutting off the timer job service, he's shutting down search, all these other pieces that are going on. And he went so far as that for SharePoint 2013, he wrote a script that will stop everything, install the patch, reboot it. It makes a tremendous difference. Now, Russ's blog post is on SharePoint 2013, but in the past for SharePoint 2010 for big farms, I've installed, or I've tried a subset of those things, stopping the timer job service, all that kind of stuff, and that seems to help. So if you're in your test environment and these patches have taken a long time, try some of these things. Read Russ's blog post. If you're on SharePoint 2013, you can just run it as is. If you're on SharePoint 2010 and want to try out that shiny new SP2 that you've heard so much about, read through that and see, because he talks about doing things like shutting off distributed cache, which obviously you can't do in SharePoint 2010 because there is no distributed cache. But, go through it and do those kind of things. Test it out in test, and I think you're going to find that it's going to speed things up an awful lot. So thanks to Russ for that. Thanks to Doug and Lori for talking about that in the chat room beforehand, so I can bring it up again. Very timely with the SP2 coming out. And we've got people in the chat room going, "You're kidding! Oh my goodness!" So Jack is asking, so this is for SP2 as well? Sort of. It will probably work, and I'd have to bring that blog post up and walk through the things. But Russ does things like shut off the timer job service, IIS admin, pausing search, stopping search, things like that. And so those are all things that you can do for SP 2010. His post is on SP 2013, but a bunch of it carries over. But good stuff. I've done that before. Works as advertised. Doesn't cost you anything. It's all good stuff. So this is a thing that it was a weird thing here in the U.S. And I know I've got a bunch of viewers and listeners that are from outside the U.S. But this has kind of been a worldwide thing. In the U.S. here, back a couple of months ago, we had this guy. He was a disgruntled NSA contractor, which is weird because you can't be gruntled as far as I know. You can only be disgruntled, which is unfortunate. Kind of gives you no option but to be unhappy. But he was disgruntled about some of the things that the U.S. intelligence community was doing. So he snuck off to Hong Kong and started releasing a bunch of things, a bunch of classified documents about programs that the U.S. government's running, things that they're doing. Everybody got all excited about it. So this thing was huge, and it was this big international incident. Come to find out, this guy, Edward Snowden, was a SharePoint guy. And the information that he got was information that he had pulled out of SharePoint backups. Poor SharePoint, getting a bad name. So Beta News had an article a few days ago about why SharePoint isn't to blame for this. Now this is obvious. I mean, there were some things that came out that when this whole SharePoint aspect first came out, that talked about, SharePoint security model is lax and blah blah. This shouldn't have happened. The problem is that he had physical access to the servers, and once you have physical access to any server, any kind of database, whatever, you're going to be able to get things out. There's a certain point where you have to trust your administrators, and the government trusted Edward Snowden, and they got bit by it. So I've seen some discussions about how this proves that SharePoint is an insecure platform and can't be used for important things. Not the case, not the case at all. Now, for highly, highly secure SharePoint environments, and I've worked on some of those, they do some crazy things to keep things secure. They do things like they have a buddy system where anytime an admin logs into a server, another admin has to watch. So the idea is that, one guy might get disgruntled, but the other guy might still be gruntled. Or as Doug in the chat room likes to say, contented. Gruntled sounds funner, easier to say. So there's those kind of things. Another thing is they will physically block USB ports. I've had customers like that where you couldn't hook up any removable drives to any machines anywhere. No servers, no workstations, whatever. And so in order to get anything out of these secure environments, you had to burn it to a CD. You had to go get, had to get your blank CDs from a place. There is no security method anywhere that is 100%. Locking your door to your house doesn't keep 100% of burglars out. Having a password on your email address doesn't keep 100% of people from hacking it. And taking these precautions on your SharePoint servers doesn't keep 100% of the people out. That's not what security is about. Security is about making yourself a harder target. And so by doing these things, these highly secure environments can make themselves a harder target and make it tougher for people to do bad things. And the hope is that you will make it tough enough for them that it won't be worth their time. So potentially, if somebody would have done that for Edward Snowden, this wouldn't have happened. But specifically, the job that he was doing when this happened is he was moving some information from a SharePoint environment in the East Coast somewhere to the SharePoint servers that they had there in Hawaii. So obviously, in order to move data, he has to have access to data. But kind of what I wanted to point out is that this is not a SharePoint problem. This is a personal problem. This was a guy that was just looking for a way to get stuff out, and he found it. But not a SharePoint issue. And again, kind of two of my security axioms are, security is just about making yourself a harder target. There is no 100% security. And the reason that I bring that up is because you get people who say, well, why do we do this? You can still get around it this way. And I hate this argument that if you can't do everything, you shouldn't do anything. That's a fallacy in my head. So again, making yourself a hard target. And then for everything that you do, and again, locking your car doors, whatever, every incident like this, there's a continuum where you've got secure on one side and convenient on the other, and you just need to find that balance for whatever your situation is. It's less convenient to have to get a key out of my pocket to unlock my front door, but it gives me some extra security. Now, if I had to, put 7 keys in and type a code in and do retinal scans, now it's more inconvenient than the security's worth, so I'm not going to do it. But this is just kind of a general, here's some security stuff. It's not SharePoint's fault. So speaking of patches, I should have moved this one up one before I went and got off on a rant there. We've had some folks that have been upgrading around putting IE10 on their Windows 7 boxes, and we've noticed some folks having problems. Mainly, so this first came out of our branding folks because they were trying to fire up the Design Manager, and they had a Windows 7 box. They had recently upgraded to IE10. They tried to open up the Design Manager, which if you haven't used it in SharePoint 2013 yet, it actually maps a drive to the place where the files are, and then you use whatever to alter those files or master pages, and then SharePoint alters them in the background. But after they put IE10 on, this all broke. So there's a patch, KB2846960, that fixes that, fixes some authentication issues, fixes the WebDAV stuff. So if you're rolling IE10 out in your environment and you have SharePoint 2013, put that patch on your to-do list. Another fun authentication thing that I had last week or a couple of weeks ago, I forget now. We had some folks that were trying to open up a PDF file, tried to view a PDF file. They were getting prompted for authentication, but there was, I think it was all set for anonymous access. And so this brought up one of these interesting things where the user had access to view the file, but they didn't have access to open the file. I think that's the designation. So this is for SharePoint 2013 with the Office web apps, and so basically you have to give permission to open the item and view the item. It's a weird deal. There's a very good reason why they're separate, but if you get this issue where you're getting authentication prompts on anonymous web apps for PDF files, you have to go into the web, so not the web app, not the site collection. You need to go into the web and change the permissions on anonymous access to be able to open those up. And there's this blog post on kroosbergens.com. I'll have it linked in the show notes. About 3 lines of PowerShell, and then that opens it right up. So that was a weird one because it was anonymous. They could download it. They couldn't open it. It was a weird deal. So that will hopefully save you guys some headaches. So speaking of PowerShell, this has, well, I think nothing to do with SharePoint, but it was just kind of a cool thing. As you all know, I do a lot with PowerShell. I just love the pants off PowerShell. There's going to be more about PowerShell in a couple of minutes here. And one of the things that's new with, so I've been doing a bunch of auto build stuff lately and all that. And with Windows Server 2012 R2, they increased a whole bunch of file and disk level commandlets that you could use to scale things out and build things. And the PowerShell team had a blog post on that had a page and a little thing. So I linked that up, but it's just a bunch of new PowerShell commandlets are going to be in Windows Server 2012 R2 that you can use to scale things out. And there's some great stuff in there. I really like that blog post. Okay, so we got a couple minutes. Yeah, we got time. We're going to run late, so we'll go ahead and do this. One of the viewers, guy I met at TechEd and all that kind of stuff, Ellis Luboff, had some problems. Him and I were emailing back and forth. He'd installed some patches, done some stuff, and he was having some issues. And turns out we troubleshot a few things and looked at a few things. Turned out the problem that he was having was that his HTTP header was too big. And so, the header that his web client was sending back to SharePoint was too big. SharePoint was pooping out and not letting him in. So the fix for that is to go onto the SharePoint box and increase the max field size for HTTP headers. And so if you get this error, it's pretty obvious. I mean, the error is error 400. The header is too long. Pretty easy if you search it. But this was a good one. After I saw this, I saw a couple of the references to it, so I thought I would shout that out and give Ellis a thanks for bringing that up to my attention. Doug in the chat room is asking which version of IE. I don't know, but this change was on the server, not on IE, so I don't know that it matters. So, in following up, there's some lag between the broadcast and in the chat room, so a lot of times I'll go back and catch stuff. So when I was talking about all the PowerShell stuff and building things out, Doug in the chat room was talking about using Orchestrator and SCOM and all that kind of stuff. I've been doing a bunch of that stuff for a project that I've been working on, and I've thought about maybe doing a netcast on that, building out environments with System Center and SCOM and Virtual Machine Manager and Orchestrator and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if my SharePoint audience cares about that. So if you have any interest in that, building out big virtualized farms and things like that, and you want 30 minutes to an hour of me talking about that, let me know, and I could throw something together, because I have been playing with it, and it's some really great technology. And the whole time that I've been playing with it, in the back of my head, I've been thinking, how can I leverage this to do SharePoint? So I've got some ideas on that. So I got some folks in the chat room that are interested in that. So I might do that. I don't know if I'll do it as a Monday night deal, because I think it's a very specific topic. But it's good to know that people have interest in that. So I might throw some of that together. But I've been having a lot of fun. I'm not at the point where I want to do System Center instead of SharePoint, but System Center's got some really cool stuff in it. So I'm glad to see that other folks are playing with it too. Okay, so I think that is all of my topics. Tech Rev Merrill is saying that he'd download it but probably never watch it. Honestly, that's probably the safest bet for any of the media that I put out. Go ahead and download it. Watching it, optional. I wouldn't sweat it. Okay, so talking about shameless self-promotion, of course. If you haven't already, go out and buy yourself a copy of this little devil, Professional SharePoint 2010 Administration. Still doing well. Still the first hit on Amazon when you search for SharePoint 2013. So that's been good. Getting a lot of good feedback on it. If you do have it and you've read through it and feel that you're qualified to give a review on it, please do. Please go out to Amazon, give a review on that. Those help sales tremendously. After you do that, after you buy my book, and after you do a review for my book, go out and get this one, SharePoint 2013 Inside and Out. This one is written by Dervish Shadravan, Penny Coventry, Tom Resing, and Christina Wheeler. So friends, co-workers, all that. They've done a great job with that. It's got lots of pictures. I've learned things. I've read through it. All good people. They're very deserving of your money after you've given me your money. There we have that. And also, if you buy my book, you can buy it from me, and I will send you an autographed copy. If you go to that blog post, if you go to toddklindt.com/pro-sp2013admin, you can see how to order that, and I'll ship it right to your house if you're in the U.S. If you're not in the U.S., if you're in Canada, for a little extra, I can ship it up to you, because shipping to Canada is expensive. Apparently, that moose food is very expensive. Outside of the U.S. and Canada, I can't really make that work because it's just too expensive. That book is not worth what it would cost me to send it to you. Okay, so I talked about PowerShell a little bit. I'm going to be talking about PowerShell a whole lot more on Wednesday. So Rackspace this week is doing 10 free SharePoint 2010 webinars. They're calling it the Sizzling Summer of SharePoint or something like that. And so there was one today. We had a flub up on the afternoon one, but I think there was going to be 3 tomorrow. And then mine is Wednesday morning, and it's going to be all about SharePoint 2010 and PowerShell. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, SharePoint 2010? My goodness, it's almost 2014. Yeah, I mean, I get that. The problem is we found that at Rackspace, a lot of our customers are still using SharePoint 2010, and we were able to hit a bigger base and provide more value by doing SharePoint 2010. So we're doing it on SharePoint 2010, though I think everything that I'm going to talk about is applicable for SharePoint 2013 as well. So sign up for that. You can go, you can sign up for that. If you sign up for mine or any of the other ones, because you heard of this, put my name in the comments field. There's a big drawing at the end, and I don't know what I win, a pat on the back or something like that, for promoting the webinars. But come to that. There's going to be a chat room. There's going to be people answering questions. Also, if you are listening to this live, or if I get this out before Wednesday, which I think there's exactly 0 chance of, if you have any suggestions for things I should cover in that, let me know. So what I've been doing in the past is I used to have a scripted out thing. I would go through some slides and do some canned demos, and I kind of got bored with it. And last year when I was in Toronto for the SharePoint Summit, I got about halfway through my my canned thing, and I'm like, oh, I was getting bored. And if I'm bored, then the crowd can feel it if I'm not excited about what I'm doing. So I just kind of put it all down and said, does anybody in the class here have an idea, something they want to do with PowerShell? And it worked out really well. So I've been taking suggestions for things to do in PowerShell in these webinars. So a couple of things that I'm going to be doing Wednesday that I'm planning for already are things that people on Twitter or whatever have suggested to me. So if you've got a task that you want to know how to do in PowerShell, shoot me an email, todd.klindt@rackspace.com, or send me a tweet at toddklindt and let me know. I'm not promising I'm going to handle it. It's only a day, this thing's only a day and a half away. But if I can't figure it out, I'll at least kind of walk you through the process of how I would figure it out and kind of get you nudged in the right direction. But I want to give you stuff that's applicable that you can take home and use right away. The transcript for everything I do I'll have out on my website, so you'll be able to grab that right away also. But please sign up for that. Would love to have you there. Would love to see you in the chat room. Want to have a good, strong showing. I keep telling the folks at Rackspace what a big deal I am, and they're always saying, well, we got Robert Scoble. He's kind of a big deal. I'm like, yeah, I'm not a big deal like that, but I'm a big deal, honest. My mom tells me all the time what a big deal I am. So by signing up for this class and showing up and all that, you make me look good by looking like a big deal to my boss and all that. Doug in the chat room's got some ideas. Excellent. I might check that out. So please sign up for that. So that's Wednesday. Then on Sunday, I jump in a plane. I'm almost never in planes, but I jump in a plane and I go to SP TechCon. And I am busy at SP TechCon next week. So a few of you in the chat room are going to be there. I know Lori's going to be there. And so I think I've got 3 sessions, not positive, but I think Shane signed me up for 3. And then we're going to be doing lightning talks on Monday night. Rackspace is going to have a booth, and we're going to be hanging out there. And so if you're going to be at SP TechCon, please swing by. And I mentioned earlier that I was wearing a T-shirt, and this was going to be important, at our booth. I keep clicking my own name to find out what sessions I'm doing. It's not showing up. We're going to be giving away these shirts. So I think we get a score of 0 for originality because everybody and their dog is doing these keep calm and shirts, but we're doing it too. So they're going to be at the booth. You can do whatever to get those. We'll probably give some away in the class. We're going to be doing 3 sessions next week, upgrading from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. SharePoint 2013 admin class, and then a PowerShell for admins too. So that will be Shane and I. We'll be doing the lightning talks. I'm going to try my hardest to do this Netcast live from SP TechCon. I did it in the spring in San Francisco. Went over great, had a blast. Talked to those guys at SP TechCon at VZ Media. I think it's going to happen again, but stay alert on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, and hopefully it'll be same time, 8:30 Central, 9:30 out there at SP TechCon, and hopefully we'll get that done. But other than that, swing by the Rackspace booth and say hey, all that. Then, okay, so I got a couple other things. I'm going to be busy. In September, I'm doing not one, but 2 training classes. Not the free kind. These are like the week-long ones. The first one is going to be online, and it is September 9th through the 13th, and it is a SharePoint 2013 admin class, and it's online. And so the way it's going to work is for like 3 hours a day for 5 days. We're going to get on. I'm going to do like a WebEx thing and talk, and there's going to be labs, and you're going to have Rackspace cloud servers to do labs in and that kind of stuff. So you can sign up at sharepoint.rackspace.com for that. And then the next week, I'm going to be doing SharePoint 2010 training, and that's going to be live in Des Moines. And that's going to be, we've got the Microsoft facility down there, and I'm going to be doing an in-class thing on that. So in the show notes, there'll be links to all that. They're in the chat room right now. Sign up for that. All the prices and everything are there. Would love to see you. Would love to have you in class and teach about SharePoint 2010 or 2013. Vlad is saying, send some of those shirts to Canada. I own exactly one of these shirts, so I can't. You don't want this one. I've already worn it. But I know Joanne is going to be at SharePoint SP TechCon. Now she lives on the other side of Canada. Vlad, I know you're in Eastern Canada. She's in Regina, if I remember correctly. So maybe we could work something out. She could take 2 back and put one on a mule or moose or whatever for you and send it over. So that's everything. That's all my shameless self-promotion. I forgot to change my slide. So, but that's everything. So we ran over a course like we always do. Thanks to the folks in the chat room. Stick around, chat room. I got a couple of things to run past you guys before you leave. But thanks to everybody. Again, remember you can sign up for this, toddklindt.com/netcast to watch it live and sign up for the RSS feeds. YouTube/ToddKlindtNetcast, all that kind of stuff. Always welcome your compliments for sure, as few and far between as they are. But any suggestions you have, content, production, whatever, send them to me, todd.klint@rackspace.com or @ToddKlint, and I'll see what I can do. So thanks for your time. Thanks, everybody, and have a good night.